The nature of language change, external. So let's now look at some of the factors that externally affect the change of a language. Language change may also be affected by external causes, in particular language contact, when a language contacts with another language. This is called external change. Language contact may lead to borrowing of words from one language to another language. For example, most Germanic languages borrowed many words from French, which was a language of culture, science, and diplomacy. Obviously, especially its influence of English is great when the French remained the rulers of the Englishmen for almost 2 centuries. English was influenced much earlier and more strongly by French due to the Norman conquest in 1066. Borrowing had its impact on the morphology of Germanic languages. In Dutch, a number of affixes of French origin are used productively in combination with non-native stems. So they are used with non-native stems and sometimes even with native stem. For example, plow, itate, silly, joke, derived from the native adjective plow, which means silly. So this is how a French word is used with a German word. So it's a sign of productivity. Borrowing of inflectional forms may also take place. So certain inflectional forms were borrowed from other languages, in Dutch, in English, in many other languages. So English has Greek and Latin plurals, as we know. For example, criteria, it is a Latin word. Its singular is criterion, but generally the plural is use criteria. Similarly, schemata and data. But though these words are still used by many in the same way as they have come from Latin language, but the process of making them English plural or using English inflections on them has also started. For example, we find the plural as schemas or as museums, right? So similarly, aquariums, or actually it should have been aquaria on the pattern of criteria. But these inflections are being dropped and the inflections of English languages are being used. Lack or rarity of morphology is considered by some linguists to be typical of Pidgin and Creole languages. So it is believed that the Pidgin or Creole languages, but that is the product of Pidgin language Creole, we have discussed about it, has little morphology. I mean, there are few morphemes, few inflections. From recent research, however, it has been found that Pidgins and Creoles do have morphology, both inflection and word formation, derivation, compounding, and reduplication. So, the previous concept of the researchers, the linguist, was that there was little morphology. The morphology means there were few inflections, affixes, or prefixes when a language is started to be used for trading purpose, which is known as Pidgin. And the product of Pidgin is always Creole. But now they have found that there are some signs of morphology in these two aspects. Language contact as a source of loss of inflectional morphology can be observed in the development of Afrikaans, that has mother language, which is Dutch. So language contact, it's in this Afrikaans, it is seen that there are certain affixes that have been dropped from the language from Afrikaan, which is a pidgin from Dutch language. Afrikaan has an extremely simple kind of inflectional morphology with a present tense form that is identical to the stem. There is no S or ES type of thing or like the thing, and there is no agreement for person, singular and plural, without any person and number marking. So it means that on the words of Afrikaan, you don't have to use any singular, plural agreement, any third person case agreement, etc. The word, noun or verb remain the same for all the people, for I, we, you, he, she, it. Morphological changes, the erosion of inflectional system in the Germanic and Romanist languages referred to as deflection. So this change is known, that has taken place on Romanic languages, known as deflection, that the thing has deviated from its right path. English has the poorest inflectional system of all. This is one of the reasons for the simplicity of English language. Had there been a lot of inflections to the words, it would have been difficult. So it has simple 3-4 forms, singular, plural, two types of singular number, singular and plural, and similarly no case on the noun, only in the gender or possessive case, a few gender. So that is one of the reasons for the for English to be so widespread, because it has very poor, according to the linguists, inflectional system. Most Germanic languages have lost their case system and 3 gender system, right? So they have lost their case system, like French and other, and that has made them simple languages. Language change is obviously not restricted to the morphological system of languages. It's not the morphology. Obviously, syntax and semantics are also involved in it. Quotation have above from Chaucer also shows phonological and syntactic and semantic changes. We just read in the previous topic that how we saw that the present day English is different from the English of Chaucer. Phonological change is exemplified by the loss of the final vowel of rute. We pronounce it root. That has become root in modern English. Similarly, the word order, noun, adjective in chores sute correspond with the modern English sweet Shabbos. So I told it at that time too, that the now in present day English, adjectives pre-modifies, comes before the noun, then it post-modifies. An example of semantic change is that the present day meaning of liquor is no longer liquid, but it denotes alcoholic liquids only. So these are some of the aspects that tell us that how these changes have taken place in English and other Germanic language in phonology, morphology, semantics, and syntax.